Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Board members present, Mr. Jeff Black, representing the Western Caroline District, Mr. Calvin Taylor, representing the Port Royal District, Mr. Reginald Underwood, Reedy Church District, Mr. Jeff Seeley, representing the Bowling Green District, Mr. Floyd Thomas, representing the Mattaponi District, and I'm Wayne Akers, and I represent the Madison District. I'm going to ask Mr. Thomas if he would lead us in invocation, after which, if you would, please stand for Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Mr. Thomas? Please stand.
Stand. Dear Father God, we come before you this day to first thank you for the many blessings you've given us along the way. We ask now that you guide us, direct us, so that we do what's right for the county and what is your will. And now let's remember in this period of Thanksgiving, which we're about to celebrate, the true love that you gave us, the true love that brings us all together. And in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additional amendments to the agenda other than what is in the addendum that was?
Just in the addendum.
Is there a motion to approve the amendments to the agenda? Second.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Thomas. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And the motion is carried. Opening board comments, Mr. Black.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just have a couple. First of all, I want to congratulate and thank the members of our emergency services during the storm, Hurricane Sandy. As one of the things as a supervisor, you get emails and texts about what's going on from both the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department, and it was very impressive. We were getting continuous updates about what was happening in the county. So once again, I want to thank them personally. The second thing is in relation to that, my emergency services member that I appointed, Mr. Tony Maida, he is actually, I want to personally thank him. He's actually up in West Virginia right now, and he is working with relief efforts with the Red Cross for the people. West Virginia got hit pretty hard during the storm with actually snow. So it's good to see the members of the community going out and helping outside our own county. So I want to thank both the emergency services and Mr. Maida for their support for the community. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
I have none at this time.
Mr. Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have one comment. I know that there was some controversy about the Frog Level Rescue Squad and what occurred. I want citizens of the county to know that I am 100% in support of the Frog Level Rescue Squad, and we will do what's necessary, raise funds, whatever is necessary to put that squad back into operation. It may take us a few months, but we'll get it done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Seeley.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick ones. One is I'm extremely proud of the county of Caroline. Well, I am most of the time. But really, we had an excellent turnout for the election. We had 66% through the county, which is outstanding. Most people, or most counties are 30, 40%. So it really shows that the folks in Caroline really cared. And on that note, Mr. Cully, if we could have a meeting with the Electoral Board and the Registrar. It's nice to have so many people out, but there were so many lines that probably we should have been able to avoid. So if we could just have a meeting with her and the Electoral Board to figure out how we can make it better the next time. I don't think I've ever seen 2,000 people vote at the Mattaponi District, but that was wonderful. And the last one is pretty much the same to Mr. Black. I think Ricky Madiak is on his way to New York, or is in New York. Okay. Well, I commend him for trying to go to New York to help those folks there that were caught up in the storm. So again, thanks to the emergency staff folks. And that was it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I have no open board comments either than to say that I'm surprised there were 2,000 people in Mattaponi District voted too. I didn't realize there were 2,000 registered voters in Madam Tonight?
We actually had more voters than the Madison district, if anybody would like to know.
I don't see how that could be. All right. The next item on the agenda is presentations. And the first one this evening is one that and the board is extremely, extremely pleased and happy to make. It's a posthumous recognition of Mr. Wickham Coleman Sr. for his contributions to Caroline County. And Mr. Coleman, certainly, he did a great deal for Caroline County, served in many, many positions that benefited Caroline County. He was an ag teacher in Caroline for many, many years, taught me best that he could, and he was always a gentleman and always one that you wanted to do good for, because he always tried to instill in you that you could be the very best. And so it's extremely an honor to recognize this great individual this evening. I'm going to ask Mrs. Coleman and Rick Jr. if you would come forward. And I have a presentation, a resolution here recognizing your husband and your father. This resolution was prepared, and a resolution of appreciation for Mr. Wickham B. Coleman Sr., posthumous. Whereas Wickham B. Coleman Sr. was a native and longtime resident of Caroline County, Virginia, and whereas Mr. Coleman provided faithful and dedicated service to his native county and Commonwealth during his 39 years as a high school teacher and principal at C.T. Smith High School in Ladysmith, and as a supervisor of agriculture education at the Virginia Department of Education. And whereas his contributions to Caroline County also included his work as a deacon, trustee, Sunday school teacher, and director at Carmel Baptist Church, as a longtime member of Reedy Church Ruritan Club, and as a member of the board of directors of the Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. And whereas Mr. Coleman was also a gentleman farmer, whose Coleman Farm on Panola Road has remained in the family for 5 generations. And whereas Mr. Coleman's active personal involvement in his native county, both in official and unofficial capacities, had a profoundly positive influence on the lives of many in Caroline. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the residents of Caroline, extends appreciation posthumously to Wickham B. Coleman Sr. for his dedicated years of community service and the many contributions he made to the county and to the residents of Caroline County. Adopted this 15th day of November in 2012, and signed by the clerk of the board and myself as chairman. Again, I want to say thank you so much. You had to give up a lot in order to share him with the people that he wanted to work for and to serve, and he was just really loved throughout the community. In all my years of knowing Mr. Coleman and all my years of working with the people, I certainly have heard no one say anything but positive, extremely nice things about Mr. Coleman. And so we do appreciate you, and we're going to miss him, as I know that you certainly miss him. And again, we want to say thanks.
Thank you. I would like to say that Wick loved every inch of Caroline County.
It was noticeable. Everybody knew that. Do you want to have anything?
Well, I just want to thank the board for their gesture. And as my mother said, he definitely loved all of Caroline and loved all of you. So thank you.
next item on the agenda this evening is recognition of the Sheriff's Office for recertification. Virginia's Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. At this point, I'd like to ask the Sheriff to come forward and the Major. This evening, we certainly want to recognize and congratulate the Sheriff's Office and the Sheriff and his people and this recertification. A resolution congratulating the Caroline County Sheriff's Office for receiving recertification or recreditation from the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. Whereas the Caroline County Sheriff's Office, under the leadership of A.A. Tony Lippa, sought re-accreditation from the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission, a group of law enforcement professionals whose stated goals are to increase efficiency and effectiveness, promote cooperation in the criminal justice services, ensure appropriate levels of training, and promote public confidence in law enforcement. And whereas, as part of the re-accreditation process, a team of reviewers evaluated the Sheriff's Office based on a 187-step process involving verification of all aspects of operations to ensure that standards for efficiency and effectiveness are met. And whereas on October 11, 2012, the VLEPSC Board of Directors voted to grant re-accreditation status to the Caroline County Sheriff's Office for the first time ever. And whereas achieving re-accreditation is the best measure of an agency's compliance with professional law enforcement standards and puts the Sheriff's Office in an elite group of law enforcement professionals. Now therefore be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby commends and congratulates Sheriff A.A. Tony Lippa and his staff for their hard work and dedication in achieving this significant milestone, which directly benefits the citizens of Caroline County that we all serve. Adopted this 15th day of November 2012. Sheriff, congratulations. Major, congratulations. You guys want to get in? Sure. That's your actual report. You've got that one, so thank you. Why don't you do this and all that? No, you do it. Sure. Move around, Mark. Go ahead. What do you want? Oh, this is the bigger one. There we go. Okay. There, get go line.
I accept this award on behalf of the Caroline County Sheriff's Office. The men and women from our agency worked very hard for this, and of course Major Moser is our accreditation manager. So I do accept the award on behalf of all them. I thank the board and county staff. We can't do this without you. Remember, it's our Sheriff's Office. Thank you again.
The next item is a report from Virginia Organizing, expansion of Medicaid or Medicaid under the Parent Protection or Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Who's going to do that? Oh, goodness gracious.
Good evening. I'm going to disappoint you. I don't have a lot of audio and visual aids. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. My name is Ray Scher. I'm speaking tonight and actually with 4 roles. I'm a retired nurse. I'm 16-year resident of Caroline County, a 30-year resident of the state of Virginia. And I'm also on the state governing board of Virginia Organizing. What I'd like to do is read a short statement on the Medicaid expansion of the Affordable Care Act and take about 5 minutes. Then I have a handout which just describes our organization, and there's a data sheet on why we believe what we do on the Affordable Care Act. And then I'd like to stand for any questions that you might have. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My topic is the Medicaid expansion section of the Affordable Care Act. I come here before you tonight as a healthcare advocate for Virginia Organizing, a grassroots social justice organization with 17 chapters throughout Virginia, active in Virginia for over 17 years. The mission of Virginia Organizing is to educate and empower the people of Virginia who are normally left out of the political decision-making process. We have been working to implement the Affordable Care Act in Virginia since it was passed. The battle in the upcoming General Assembly session will be around whether or not Virginia accepts the Medicaid expansion. Virginia Organizing is strongly in favor of acceptance. Our volunteers are making presentations to county boards and city councils around the state, asking that they put Medicaid expansion as a priority on their legislative agenda, and if they are so inclined, to pass a resolution to Governor McDonald in support of the expansion. The Supreme Court decision protects a state from losing all of its Medicaid federal matching dollars for its current Medicaid program if the state fails to implement the Affordable Care Medicaid expansion. This essentially gives the states the choice of whether or not to adopt the expansion, which would offer coverage to people with incomes below 133% of the federal poverty line. There is no doubt that the expansion is absolutely critical for Virginia. Virginia Medicaid, despite its cost, does not rank well when compared to other states. Virginia has some of the toughest Medicaid eligibility standards in the nation. Our eligibility level for low-income working parents is among the worst in the country, covering only those parents whose income is under 30% of the poverty line. That translates into an annual income of under $10,000 for a family of 4. Virginia also has no public insurance program for childless adults. This means that totally impoverished individuals cannot get Medicaid in Virginia. The Affordable Care Medicaid expansion changes all this by establishing a new national income eligibility level at 133% of the federal poverty level. The new eligibility level will be about $15,000 for an individual and about $31,000 for a family of 4. About 425,000 uninsured Virginians are expected to qualify in the year 2014, the first year of full implementation of the Affordable Care Act. This will have a huge impact, offering coverage for almost half of Virginia's 1 million uninsured. The Medicaid expansion is also an enormous benefit for the economy of Virginia. The Affordable Care Act calls for 100% federal financing for the Medicaid expansion for the first 3 years. Thereafter, federal funding is reduced to no less than 90% of the cost for the near future after that. The projected cost to Virginia is dwarfed by the billions of federal dollars that will come into the state to support the healthcare industry, jobs, and Virginia's overall economy. A Kaiser Family Foundation report from 2010 estimates $9 to $11 billion in federal dollars will come to Virginia over a 5-year period. DMAS has estimated this amount to be over $20 billion in a 10-year period. Especially for states like Virginia that have had historically low eligibility levels, the expansion in its funding will provide enormous benefits to citizens and its economy. This Medicaid expansion is incredibly important to Caroline County because we expect that approximately 1,400 adults in our county stand to gain coverage the first year. In our county, full-time workers making the minimum wage, people working 2 jobs at very low wages, wait staffs at our local eateries, self-employed seasonal workers, unemployed seniors, that group from 55 to 64 who have often lost coverage because they retire or they're laid off, and they're not eligible for any health care and they can't health care coverage and they can't afford it on the private market. Just to explain to you that the group I'm talking about is age 19 to 64, and the majority of people are working people who will receive benefits under the expansion. Please consider making a resolution to support Medicaid expansion and making Medicaid expansion a priority on your legislative agenda. We have already spoke to over 20 delegates and state senators. The most startling fact is how little they knew about the Affordable Care Act in general and how little they know about the Medicaid expansion. I have a handout that I'd like you all to please give you something to do while hopefully I'm answering some questions. Sorry. Thanks, Fran.
Have you completed your presentation, Mr. Scheer?
Yes, I have.
Any questions of Mr. Scheer?
Mr. Scheer, so you're asking us to pass a resolution in support of this?
Yes, I am, and also to put it on your legislative agenda, probably for John Cox, for Delegate Cox, Senator McDougal. I'm not sure how to pronounce the lady's name that represents the Port Royal District. Yes,
Ransom.
yes, and for
Bobby Orr?
Bobby Orr, yes. We have also the people that were knowledgeable, the delegates and state senators that we've talked to that kind of know, who actually knew what the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion would do for the various counties. It's not breaking either way in either party. We have people out in Southwest Virginia, in Lee County. We have people in Charlottesville who are going to send in resolutions. And mostly it's to cover their people. As I feel, firstly I'm a nurse. Second, I'm a resident of the county. And that's what we're getting back from people is that it's a very positive thing. The cost to Virginia, while high, is negligible compared to the returns that we'll get, particularly in the rural counties and the inner cities.
Okay, and the only other thing, Mr. Chairman, this does not impact our budget in doing this resolution. It does not have a monetary impact on our budget. I'm asking.
Mr. Taylor, anything that we do at the state level impacts our budget and impacts the pockets of the people of Caroline County. I personally am not willing at this point to support a resolution. I don't think that I've heard what Mr. Scheer has said. I'm sure that he has told us the parts of the Affordable Care Act that deals with Medicaid. That's making his argument, and I understand that. I understand him doing that. But I for one, am not willing to support a resolution at this point until we've had a chance to have staff or someone else to look at what he's asking us to do, and I guess he's given us a sample of a resolution. Did you give us a...
Do we have a sample resolution?
I hadn't gone that far because I tell you what my best hope this evening and the best hope of our organization is that you would listen to us, that you would compare our numbers with your social service department to see if we're in the ballpark. And one of the reasons we have to ask you to do that is in July we sought information from the state on how many people might be impacted by this, and we did not get very much information forthcoming. And again, for various reasons. But one of the things that we've noted already is the people were concerned about the cost to the state about this. The first word from Governor McDonnell in June or July was that this might cost $2.2 billion total for the 10 years for the state. But his most recent statements reflect that it may cost between $1 billion and $2 billion, which, and being an advocate, I'll quickly round that to 1.5. So it's gotten $700 million cheaper in 4 months. So to comment on how this could impact the county, our gut feeling and what we're saying to people is it certainly may generate another staff member in your social service department. You may have to look for, I would be dishonest not to say that. Right. But there also are pilot programs that the state can take advantage throughout the Affordable Care Act that the state can apply for that could be passed on to the county.
Yes, right. So, all right, anybody else have any questions or comments? Are you finished, Mr. Taylor?
And all I was doing was trying to determine what kind of, I guess when I phrased my question wrong, I was trying to determine what type of impact, if any, it would have if we did decide to.
And I think it's something we have to try to find out and see just what the true impacts are. You know, it depends on who you listen to about the Affordable Health Care Act as to what it's going to cost, how much it's going to cost, and all those things. So I think we need to try to have staff or someone to drill down and get the true numbers.
And that's my concern. If it is something that we can do, because quite frankly, I'm in favor of doing anything that we can do that will further health care for citizens. And I think we need to do that. But again, I'm not saying that this may not be the right direction to go, or it may be. But I just don't want us to put it on the side and not do anything about it. I want us to be able to make an informed decision based on the information that we get.
I'll agree. I think the board does. Mr. Seeley, Mr. Underwood, I don't believe had any comments or questions.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we have enough information.
Right.
I think we need to continue to gather information so that we have all the facts, then come back and make an educated decision.
Absolutely.
It's impossible right now at this point to make an educated decision in terms of cost or impact on the county. So I would hope that we would simply gather the information. Maybe Ms. Shear could come back at a later date and discuss it further.
Sure, surely. Like I said, our goal is to speak to every elected group in the state because, again, it's to inform and educate about the process, and because you can tell I understand all your concerns, and I'm tickled that you're willing to listen. I actually spent about 10 minutes at Hanover County's meeting yesterday afternoon.
Ah, okay.
Didn't generate any questions, though.
Okay, all right. Mr. Seeley? Mr. Thomas?
Just a statement, Mr. Shear, as you can tell, we don't have any financial data. If you have any or your group has any, would you please forward that to staff as soon as possible to help us?
As to
possible cost, because I think what I'm hearing, and I'm interpreting,
yes.
But what I hear is a federal program that's going to provide some funding to the state, but whenever we have a program where state funding is, there's always some sort of county match. Most of social services is 80-20 money, so we just want to make sure there's not that local match.
We have followed this for almost 4 years. Mm-hmm. There is nothing like that in the program whatsoever. This is 100% federal funding for the first 3 years, then funding at 90% for the foreseeable future. which averages out over 10 years that the feds are going to fund 93% of this. And again, I understand your concerns about what could be passed down, but in the act, and Virginia can't deviate from that.
If you have documentation to that fact, if you would provide that to
Sure.
staff, I would greatly appreciate it.
Surely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the time. It's the longest time I ever get to speak to you all.
The next item is consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda that any board member wishes to pull? If not, is there?
Can I do H?
All right, we're going to pull H.
Can I do F and I?
Yes. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve A through E, G, and G?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Thomas, that A through E and G be approved. Discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion is carried. All right, Mr. Underwood, let's do F, and then we'll do H or I.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I read the synopsis regarding the bid and then the increased cost. I guess just my concern was the cost of the initial lift. Was that included in addition to the $7,000 for the second lift?
Yeah, yes, sir. What happened was the initial bid included a lift that ultimately it lost its ADA certification. Right. And so there was money in there. The additional cost for the lift is because of a different type of lift that was more money, and it was done after the bid. We were, of course, we're not asking for any additional local money for that, so we were able to successfully get the state to cover that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I, Mr. Underwood?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at the lease agreement. Is there not space that we continue to need to lease space for public safety? We don't have
Public Works. It's a public works shop down just
yeah.
south of here on the left. We don't have any space of that type at this time. Not at this time. That's maintenance. I mean, it's a vehicle maintenance, a garage type building, shop building. We don't have a shop building at the wastewater treatment plant at this time.
Wonder if we could talk with the...
The building that there is all office space divided amongst the plant operations, public works, and public utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Cullen.
I think, Mr. Underwood, you make a good point, because we've been paying, lease on this property for many years now. I mean, it's probably been 10 years that we've been leasing this particular facility. It may be worth sitting down and talking with the school board about expanding their shop, even if we had to help pay to do that expansion or pay for that expansion. I think we could pay for it in not too many years at this price. So you're right. We'll need to look at that. Maybe at the next time we meet as a board, put that on the agenda, as a group, put it on the agenda of the school board. All right, H.
Mr. Chairman, I am very familiar with 1973 because that's the year I graduated from high school, and that's the year Secretariat won. And can we do this resolution in 2013, which is really the 40th year? It just seems like it's...
Come to the front.
If I may, you well point out that this is the 39th year. What this would do is be sent to the General Assembly so that they could pass it for the 40th anniversary.
When is crossover day? Isn't it in February?
January 1st.
Crossover day?
No, January. I was talking about something else. I'm sorry. January 1st, though, is when all horses age another year.
No. Horses in the legislature have nothing to do with it.
Right.
Okay. I guess my question is, you're going to have to give it to them, have to find someone to introduce the bill and get them on board. And so the crossover, I don't know if that's going to make that much sense.
Yeah, I thought it was the middle of February. Do they have to? I mean,
December,
I'm
it's
sure
got
they
to
have
be
to
by
have it.
December 4th.
Yeah, they have to have it. I don't know what the problem is.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know
Go ahead.
what the difference is. We're just going to get it to them in time so they can vote on it, hopefully, at this year's, or next year's General Assembly.
That was a theory.
We're just doing a 40-year resolution at the 39th year. It's fine.
Are you going somewhere with that?
No, it's,
Oh, okay. I thought you had something else in mind.
no, you do anniversaries on the anniversary date.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
Okay, you give it that. All right, is there a motion to approve F, H, and I on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Underwood, that F, H, and I be approved. Discussion. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. And the motion is carried. Oh, gee. A public comment period is not until 7:30. Are there any, is there anything on the agenda,
do
Mr.
that
Cullen,
first
that you
reading.
feel like we can go ahead and move to? How about 10, Mr.
First
Fincham?
reading.
Is that something that we can handle? Probably 9 as well. Well, that's been pulled. 9 has been
9 is
pulled
pulled.
off the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have a series of proposed text amendments that were in your board packet, as well as a summary sheet that I handed out at your seats prior to the meeting tonight. Within our current zoning ordinance, we have a couple of different definitions that relate to recreational and community uses within the various zoning districts. In a number of cases, those uses either are the same or perhaps are in conflict with one another. In addition, we have recently been approached by several HOAs or POAs about the regulations and allowing them to construct an administrative office within their communities, Portabago Bay, as well as Lake Landor. In some cases, if it can be interpreted to be allowed as a community use or community facility, it would require a special exception, and staff and the Planning Commission all felt that an administrative office building for a POA or HOA should be a permitted use, and that recreational uses which might have a greater impact on neighbors in the community should continue as a special exception use. The proposed series of amendments that are in your packet, which were forwarded to the board by the Planning Commission last night with a recommendation of approval, would, one, clean up the discrepancies or the overlap in the definitions between community uses and recreational facilities for residents. It would also create a separate designation for community administrative offices for these HOA or POA offices within residential communities and allow those uses as a by right use, subject to the zoning, building permits, and plan review process. That, in a nutshell, is a summary of the proposed changes in the regulations. With that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Black?
Mr. Fincham, I've just got a couple here. I was looking through this, and we had discussed this earlier. What financial impact would this have on any HOA, POA?
This in and of itself would not have any financial impact. They would still be subject to the regulations of the zoning ordinance. So if a permit's required, it would still require a permit. You could, I think, say that this actually lessens the impact for an office, a POA or HOA office, and that arguably they no longer would have to go through a special exception process. And it also expands that type of use into residential communities where they're not presently allowed.
Okay. The second thing I noticed in here, and I don't know, I know in my own Lake Landor, where I live, they call themselves a property owners association. And I noticed in here in the text amendments that we have going, some of them are HOAs. I'm not sure which ones, if Lake Caroline considers them HOA or POA, and some of the other ones. Can you make sure that it says, and Mr. Famera had also brought this up to me, it says in this, if you're going to change this, it says POA/HOA, depending on what they consider themselves, homeowners or property owners association?
Yes, sir. The Planning Commission recommended that adjustment with their motion last night.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Taylor?
I don't have any at this time.
Mr. Underwood?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seeley?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thomas?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fincham, Mr. Black's Blake Landor, Belmont, Ladysmith Village, they're all zoned the same, which is R1, aren't they?
I believe Belmont is PRD, Planned Residential Development.
Residential, okay. Which is, that's not an option. But I was just looking at what was old, and the others are R1, it would have been permitted by special exception, and you're saying when we go to the new one, they'll all be by right, so we just need to add whatever plan, whatever Belmont was?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The office uses would be by right. Recreational uses would still be by special exception unless that was included with the original zoning approval by the board.
Exactly. Okay. All right, so we just need to add whatever they were, and you're defining a community use, private indoor, outdoor recreational facilities. Pools would be the same thing if they want to build a pool? That's
Yes,
not
sir.
considered a building, is it?
It's still a structure which requires a permit. It's not a building, as you say.
Okay, then I think I understand. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Does the board want to have a second reading on this, or do you want to forego the second reading and schedule a public hearing?
I guess I only have, in saying that, one, we have property owners associations, we have homeowners associations. What other designations do we have in the county?
In terms of neighborhood organizations,
Right.
those would
Are
be
the
the
only two?
those would be the two classifications. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Fincher?
Yes, sir.
Four Winds, do they not have some type of association down there?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
I'll double check, but I believe that is a property owners association.
So,
I'm going to reiterate what Mr. Taylor said. That's not a residence.
Yeah, you have to make a distinction
So-
between
Correct.
full-time residences and part-time, which is what they're supposed to be.
And I guess that's, I wasn't going there, but I was trying to reconcile the two classifications over the third classification. And I think that needs to be laid out so that it doesn't get misconstrued.
Yes, sir.
yeah, I'm not sure that we should not have established a